The AFL silly season, also known as the trade period, is finally over. It was a brutally long 10 days, with basically 90% of the trades being completed with about 10 minutes left. So with all the deals done and dusted, there does seem to be a clear set of winners, losers, and plenty of interesting storylines to follow going into the pre-season and into 2025. From the outside, the two clubs who copped the biggest heat for their deals were Port Adelaide and West Coast. We'll get to the Eagles a bit later, but many think Port Adelaide are the biggest losers at this stage. They bashed the table demanding 2 first-round picks for Dan Houston, and in the 3-club trade with Collingwood and Gold Coast, they essentially received pick 13 and 29 for him. Now if those 2 picks turn into Rosie and Butters 2.0, then congratulations, but at this point they got unders from what they were wanting. Then they gave up their future first-round pick for the sporadic Jack Lukosius. He's never kicked 40 goals in a single season, he can often come and go in games, and who even knows where his best position is. 3-time premiership coach Damien Hardwick seemed lost at the end of 2024 on where to actually play him. Joe Richards and Rory Atkins come in as depth guys, along with some later picks as well. They lost a contracted Houston for an average price according to the one they set, and I think it's fair to say overpaid in draft capital and contract length for Lukosius, who albeit has talent, but hasn't influenced the competition consistently with it. Port are in a weird position right now, and former premiership player Kane Corns summed it up pretty well. Speaking on SEN, he said, "Same with Jack Lukosius. It just says to me that Port Adelaide are rebuilding, but it's confusing because if you're rebuilding, you want to finish down the bottom next year. The problem with that is you've given away your first round pick for Jack Lukosius, which could, if Port Adelaide finish bottom 6, be a very good pick inside the top 10. When you compare that crosstown rivals Adelaide got Alex Neil-Bullen, Isaac Cumming and James Peatling, who are all solid versatile players, and still have pick 4 in the national draft, the direction of the South Australian clubs next year will be a fascinating watch. Now besides Port Adelaide, it was the Western Australia media and some West Coast fans that were bemused by the Eagles' dealings, especially the 3-club trade involving pick 3. But it's not all that bad. Sure, they did slide down from pick 3 to pick 12 and used pick 14, which they got from Carlton, to get in Liam Baker. In their planning, it was all they could really do to get Baker in trade. They could have walked him in the pre-season draft, but it's not good practice between the clubs to do that. But no doubt some of you West Coast fans were screaming at the Eagles to do exactly that. Liam Baker is a pro, a good AFL player and can play anywhere. Matt Elwes, who they also got from Carlton, is a solid small forward who can fit right in from day one. It was the Barrash trade that balanced out the possible loss from the Baker ordeal. The Eagles got Hawthorn's first round, second round and third round picks for 2025, giving them Barrass and their own 2025 fourth round pick. It stocks them up well for the next draft, can help them if they wish to lure Chad Warner back home, and allows them to trade back in to this upcoming draft. With the stockpile of future picks they have, it gives them plenty of flexibility. They also got Jack Graham as a free agent, who is another mature premiership player from Richmond. West Coast fans will be split on their club's actions this trade period, but all in all they got the players they wanted in, and still have a good draft hand in the short term. Moving up the ladder, 2 premiership contenders got what they wanted out of the trade period. Now you can argue whether Collingwood's strategy to trade out picks and spend up in free agency is good for their long-term health, but they achieved their goal, to be in a position to attack 2025. Dan Houston is a star halfback who is better than John Noble and might be able to play higher up the ground, and Perryman, who is just 25, adds more midfield and halfback depth. They may also add Tim Membry and Adam Tomlinson as well in this clear push for a second flag in 3 seasons. Hawthorn went down a similar path. their pick 14 being moved to Carlton got them an extra future second round pick, so it eases the cost of the Barras trade. With Josh Battle coming over as a free agent, the Hawks have the best key defence room in the AFL, with Sam Frost and James Blank also at the club. Surely it means James Sicily is the one who moves forward in a back-to-the-future positional switch-up. Hawthorn right now not only have a great starting 22 on paper, but have serious depth in the midfield and defence, so they will be able to cover cluster injuries and manage players throughout the season. The other winner is Richmond in a different way. They do lose Rioli, Baker and Bolton in trade and Graham in free agency, but in each of the cases with the trades, you can argue they got well overs in terms of draft capital. Heading into the national draft, Richmond has 8 selections inside the top 24 picks, including pick 1, 6, 10 and 11. Now it's highly unlikely they will use all of those picks, so trading some of them into next year could be beneficial and may help them gain extra second and third round picks in the future too. In a draft perspective, the Tigers hold a lot of cards and teams will pay up to buy back in. Just like Collingwood has pressure to win now based on their moves, we will look back on this draft and next year's in 5 years' time for Richmond. It will be a defining couple of off seasons as the club looks to commit to a full rebuild and create a new identity. Besides the major winners and at this stage losers, there are plenty of great storylines to follow in the near future and throughout 2025. Carlton were the team that took the big leap up the draft board, giving this year's future first round pick as well as next year's first and second rounders to get up to pick 3. The odds on favourite of who they will pick up has to be Finn O'Sullivan, although he is no guarantee to slide down to pick 3. It's aggressive and clearly the club wants a difference maker who can impact now. North Melbourne, who still have selection 3, got in Luke Parker, Jack Darling and Caleb Daniel. All 3 are experienced premiership winners who will slot into each line on the field. They will not only give off-field benefits, but are 3 better players on-field than the fringe guys already at the club. The Western Bulldogs will look a bit different in 2025, with regulars in Caleb Daniel and Jack McRae out, following on from Bailey Smith, who headed off to Geelong. Smith himself will be a great watch, coming off an ACL and reportedly getting his wish to play as a centre bounce midfielder. We all know he has potential, so let's see what he can deliver. And the literal final move of the trade period was Jake Stringer to GWS. Talk about a wild card. At his best he wins games, and at his worst he needs a missing person report. The Giants rushed the deal in the end and seemed to be a bit iffy on bringing him in, and at one stage even called off the trade. He's no guarantee to start round 1, and maybe that will force him to get in good shape to try and have the season-long impact at his 3rd AFL club.